What's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to some more Lost in the Pond, and this one is 8 things I only encountered after moving to America, roadside edition. And I saw in the thumbnail it was a fire hydrant, and I don't even know how they work still. I mean, there's like a little thing on the side of them. I think you just attach it to that and you put the hose on it. I don't know, to be fair, but where does the water even come from? Is it just from like the water system that people like drink water and stuff? I have no idea, but I mean, it's obviously a cool function and it makes sense because especially in certain places it's going to be needed. Like, I mean, places that get colder maybe. I don't know, because it's just, I don't know, maybe even hotter actually. I don't know, colder, because if it's colder maybe it's less likely to, I don't know what I'm saying. The colder it is, the heart, I don't know. I have no idea, to be honest. But we're going to jump into this anyway and learn and see these things. I don't know what else there would be that I can't really think of, but the fire hydrants are at the end of the video. So, I mean, yeah, we're going to jump into this. Hopefully going to enjoy. Links are in the description to my Patreon, where you can see reactions that I can't post to YouTube. And, yeah, let's jump into this.
Fell asleep in the car again. Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond. And one of those memos pertains to our roads. Specifically, some of the things we encounter while traversing those roads. Because while we can all have a laugh at each country's propensity for driving on the wrong side of the road, we've been too busy not noticing what's around us. And so in just a moment, I and my wife, who fell asleep in the house like a regular person, are going to go for a little drive to look at 8 things that I only encountered after hitting the American road. And so while we're waiting, if you're the sort of person who likes learning about British versus American cultural differences and you haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, do that now. In the meantime, here she is. Let's get going. Shoes?
What shoes?
This was the weirdest thing. When I first moved to America, probably in the first year, I kept seeing shoes dangling from telephone wires.
I've seen this a couple times in my city, but there was a few places I used to see this. And I've not seen it in years, not since I was a kid. And I never really understood what was going on. But I have definitely seen this, but it's not for a long time. I'd say like I was probably like 6, 7 when I used to see this stuff. That's so weird.
And it was weird because at first I thought, oh, that was just somebody drunk who threw them up there. And then I saw them about 4 or 5 times and thought, maybe it's the same family who like to climb these things and just spontaneously combust.
I've seen it before, but I don't know why people do that.
It's weird. I didn't see this in Britain, and I see it all the time here. But maybe there's another reason behind it. I'm going to look into that in just a moment. Okay, I lied. I actually became aware of this phenomenon before moving to America. I saw it in the film Big Fish with Ewan McGregor. However, since the 2003 film leans heavily into fairy tale, I just assumed that shoe dangling was part of that. But apparently it's fairly common throughout most of America, even if Americans can't agree on the reasons for it. In some regions, shoe tossing apparently commemorates the end of school or the start of a marriage. Others connect the practice to the military, while in major cities like Los Angeles or here in Chicago, popular legend likes to link it to the activity of gangs. Either way, that's why I don't wear shoes with laces. That and I'm irredeemably lazy.
Fair enough. Drip, drop.
Speaking of films, that brings us on perfectly to our next entry, which is water towers. And at this point, I can visualise Uncle Toby frantically typing away on his keyboard saying something like, "Ooh, Lawrence, what do water towers have to do with films?" And also, we have water towers in the UK. What's your point? Well, let me address both points one by one. The film is What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Right, we've all seen that scene where Leonardo da Vinci, DiCaprio, climbs up a water tower and the whole town tries to get him down. And watching that film growing up in England, I couldn't help but notice 2 things. One, that the water tower appeared to be quite top heavy, and 2, that
quite tall. Are they usually this tall?
it was entirely made of metal. You see, typically water towers in Britain are these concrete brutalist looking buildings.
Yeah, they look completely different. You don't have the metal ones at all.
That look like something from a scary film, which is why my brother and I had nightmares. But in America, it turns out that the water tower in What's Eating Gilbert Grape is a fairly old style one. The ones I see around towns here in the Midwest look just as metallic and even more top heavy. And the fun thing about American water towers is that they actually help you pinpoint where you are. Because in the event that your GPS goes down, you can simply look out of your window and realise you've ended up in Salem. Thankfully, this is just stock footage from my provider.
Bro, they look so... So the water goes up here then? How do water towers even work? I don't really understand.
And I'm not a witch or living in the past. Plus, that was Salem, Ohio, not Salem, Massachusetts. Oh, America.
Pump it up.
Oh, there's something we don't have a lot of in Britain. It is what looks like a huge bouncing castle, but is in fact a sort of, well, kind of a blow-up building, an inflatable building. And I think when I first saw one of these, I just assumed that's where America stores all of the aliens. But it's actually a lot more innocent than that. What usually happens inside these big blow-up buildings?
Tennis?
Tennis. It's a sports and recreation centre, and these things are sort of all over the Midwest. And even on our honeymoon, when we went to the Eagle's Nest, which is a restaurant high up in Indianapolis, we overlooked the RCA Dome when it was still around, and that was similar looking. It was just larger. I've just realised I do occasionally see English footballers honing their skills in domes like this. So since I left the UK, perhaps they took off. You know, not literally. That would
I've never seen one, to be fair.
be chaos for air traffic control. But they do look like they could.
We didn't get
In the
the
past, my subscribers have heard me talk about how American roads are often lined with billboards. But in the interest of not wanting to cover old ground again, I'd like to talk about a different type of board entirely. Notice boards. Specifically, notice boards that you tend to see outside of churches or schools. And again, calm down, Toby. I know we have those in Britain. What we don't have, or at least didn't when I lived there, are electronic notice boards. These things are everywhere. At school, it might say something like, "Ooh, this week the kids are having a fun run." Or if it's outside of a church, "Jesus is returning this Tuesday. Bring water." Whereas in Britain, if we have notice boards like this, they're probably handwritten in chalk or written on a piece of paper with an arrow through it.
Ready, steady,
There's
go.
a Thai place over here next to Trader Joe's. It's really good.
Hey,
You should go and eat there.
take a break from the video and do that.
Yeah.
Before I do that though, I just want to talk about traffic lights. In America, you have traffic lights that are literally hanging.
Yeah, they like that is so fascinating. Like, it's on a cable, and they literally like move, like with the wind. In the UK, they'll be on like a pole, and then they'll be like set in their place, and they won't be able to move like they sort of do here, but with the wind and stuff.
Seemingly by a thread a lot of the time. I mean, it's by multiple cables, but I think visually that's probably one of those things that stands out the most when you first visit America and you are on the road. That and the size of the cars. And then you have traffic lights that are on a pole, but it's a horizontal pole, and it just looks like the whole thing will come down if there's a bad storm. Whereas in Britain, our traffic lights usually sit on a vertical pole at the side of the road. Personally, I don't care about this either way. I just want to know what you call them. Because in America, I've heard traffic light, stop and go light, and just stop light. Let me know in the comments below.
Come again.
When I first moved to the United States, there was this one occasion when my wife asked me to meet her at a strip mall. And being new to the country, I misinterpreted what that meant and ended up at my first ever pole dancing class. But eventually I learned what strip malls are, and we all had a very, very good laugh at me. For those of you that don't know, a strip mall is basically a mini mall with a parking lot / car park and an array of shops and or eating establishments.
Oh, so it's not a mall. You do... My throat, man. You do have these in the UK, kind of, but it's not called a mall. It's just like a shopping... I don't know, you just have a row of shops, different types of shops, but not like going in the building to go into all of them. They're just all sort of like this, pretty much. What are they called? I don't even know what it's called, that sort of thing in the UK.
Next to that car park. And they all follow a similar pattern. There'll be one or two multinational chains like a Subway or a Starbucks, surrounded by lesser known local places and a vaping store. Now in Britain, I've come to learn that strip malls do in fact exist, but not quite in the same way and don't usually go by strip malls. But the major thing to note about our equivalent of it is they're just not as ubiquitous. And Uncle Toby, ubiquitous just means omnipresent. And omnipresent means that something is all over the place. A bit like your comments, in more ways than one.
Dome, sweet dome.
I've just remembered something. For years after moving here, I was confused by the sight of something that I would see by the side of highways. And I'm not just talking about that creepy doll I saw off I-65. I'm talking about weird domes. They crop up every now and again, and they look like the sort of building into which nobody ever goes
Looks like a cult sort of building.
in and nobody ever comes out. And I swear, before making this video, I went my entire American life without knowing what they are. It turns out that they're a storage facility for salt, which I suppose Chicago needs a lot of in the winter. winter.
Damn.
Is it that kind of salt? I don't know. What I do know is that when you have to track one down for the purposes of content, they're so mysterious that you can't find one. Or are they? We actually found one. We were looking around, but the maps weren't very useful. There is a salt storage facility. I don't see any salt or pepper.
Who's seeing this?
Anyone who's ever seen an American film that involves a police car chase has probably seen one of these get
there we go.
destroyed. Yes, it's an American fire hydrant, and I dare say that many Americans, including myself, have lived here so long that we've become completely desensitized to their existence. But the truth is, you can barely drive a block in my area of the world without seeing them hanging out on a street corner. My favorite is when they're painted in such a way that they end up looking like a human member
Looks like a minion.
of the fire brigade. But growing up in Britain, I never really saw our fire hydrants because they're hidden underground. The fire brigade accesses it with, I don't know, some sort of magic.
Oh, so they have to go under. I didn't even know we had them, to be honest, which is obviously down to this. So they have to go in the ground. That just seems like there's a lot of work to do when there's a fire going on.
Key and fights the fire that way. And you might be thinking, how do they know where it is? Simple. If you've ever been to Britain, you might have noticed these little pillars.
Oh my god, I've seen this. I never knew what they were. That is wild. That's the first time I've even learned what these are. I've seen these like since I was a kid. I never knew what they meant or what they did or what it was for.
Containing the letter H. This is just a marker letting everybody know where the hydrant is. I just wanted to explain that for those of you who wondered why British action films don't have the trope of the damaged hydrant. Anyway, most American hydrants look like this. I would get up close, but I don't own it. Plus it's covered in dog piss. Arthur, can you smell Penelope on that? Such a romantic story. And that's it for this episode. I'm Lawrence.
And that's how they met. Hopefully you enjoyed this reaction, and I've never understood the shoe thing either. I've never seen anybody do it. I've never known anybody who would admit to doing it. Yeah, I guess they just keep it to themselves. The lack of headrest on the driver's seat of that car makes me so nervous. That is so dangerous. Is it? Oh shit, that's true. That is actually very true. But hopefully you enjoyed this reaction, and yeah, until next time.